Hey everybody, we are live. This is my friend Rochelle at Real Life Carnivore. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi.
And you know me, I'm Christi at Meeting Wellness. I met Rochelle when we did an episode of Lioness Lifestyle together. She came on as a guest, and we've been trying to get together and collaborate ever since. And today, we were finally able to make it happen. We are both moms with busy schedules. So we just had, I think you were sick and then whatever, but we finally got this to work. And I'm so excited today to talk with you about being a carnivore mom.
Yes, I'm really excited to have a conversation about this subject because it's very taboo. It's very triggering for a lot of people. And I get asked questions all day, every day in my DMs about how I'm doing carnivore motherhood. So I'm really excited to answer questions from your audience, from my audience, and from you.
Great. So yeah, there's people now popping in. If you guys have a question for Rochelle or myself about being a carnivore mom, pop it into the chat and we'll be happy to answer that. But we have a few questions we would like to get started with here. And so I'm going to pop this one up. So we can each kind of talk about what we think. But do you think it is important to talk to your children about carnivore?
Okay, this is a very good question. It's also a contentious question, depending on which way you look at it. I think it is important to talk to our kids about carnivore. I think it's important to talk to them specifically about nutrition and about how nutrition affects their development, about how it affects their mood, their bodies, their growth. Um, I think that there's a war against our kids and against families right now, and I think it's fed with food. I think that there's a lot of people that want kids to be sick and dependent on a medical system that doesn't actually care if they live or not. And I think it's really important that we arm our children and prepare our children for when they do grow up and leave the nest. I think it's really important that they have a good foundation and understanding because nutrition is not something that's taught anymore. It's not something that's um, at least if it's not taught in a way that's actually helpful. It's taught with the food pyramid. It's not taught with, based on the actual nutritional information, if that makes sense. Like the breakdown of the all essential 21 amino acids are available in ruminant meats. Whereas if you eat a bowl of rice cereal, you're probably getting maybe one or two of those essential amino acids if you're even getting that. I don't know the nutritional labels for rice cereal, but I'm just using it as an example. But I would love to know your thoughts, Christy. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I agree with you, but I think it's so cool that we're having this talk because you have a baby and I have teenagers, right? And I have not been carnivore the whole time that I've had kids. I've only been carnivore for a year and a half. So my kids are grown basically. So I think it's like a little bit of a different perspective. I do think it is important to talk to them, but I didn't just start talking to them right away. Although I talked to plenty of people and annoyed plenty of people, but if you try to tell a teenager how to eat or to do anything just like this, it's not going to happen. And so with them, I didn't really address it at the beginning. They just kind of watched me. They watched me get, have the benefits like the more energy. And that helped them too, because I was able to be more involved in their like extracurriculars and things. Cause even though I am also a teacher and I am tired after teaching all day, I taught all day today. I did 10 parent conferences and now I'm here doing this with plenty of energy, right? To do it and feeling good instead of just feeling exhausted and sitting on the couch and not doing anything for the rest of the evening. So they got to see me change myself so that when it finally occurred to me, or when I started to learn that carnivore could help with ADHD symptoms, which both of my sons have, I did bring it up to my younger one and just talk to him a little bit about it, what the benefits could be for him without going overboard and without sounding, preachy. And you know what? He did agree to try it, and this was back in February. So because I took the time to talk to my son about it, and he watched me do this for a year, and then I said, hey, this is maybe how this could help you. He did try it, and we are now in October, and he hasn't looked back. He's been basically carnivore ever since then. He's now experiencing the benefits for himself. We don't talk about it on a daily basis, and in fact, if I bring it up like, hey, how's it going? He's very just, he kind of blows me off. Like he's nonchalant about it. He doesn't want to go on and on like some of us on YouTube about all the benefits. But I know that he's getting them because he's not going back, right? He's not eating pizza with his friends. He's not continuing to eat ice cream and the things that he used to love to eat. He is when he requests food, it's meat. He's like, hey, when are you making a chuck roast again? Right? That kind of thing. He doesn't, when his birthday just happened last month, about a month ago, he didn't ask for cake. I didn't offer cake and he didn't ask for cake. He didn't say, am I having cake? It was pretty cool. He was like, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings because a lot of you might know they fry their wings in beef tallow. He had never had them before. He agreed to try it. He actually liked it. We both sat there with our giant plate of wings. We didn't get dessert. We gave him his gift, and that was it. I think I made him like some of his little he does these when he first started. He had these keto cookies. So like the next day, I made him a batch of those cookies. That was his birthday treat, but it was like a keto treat. It wasn't like sugary, and he didn't ask it of me. Like I did it just as like, hey, here's a little birthday treat. Some of them are still in the freezer now. I believe I just said it was a month ago. So wow. His taste for sweet things has like automatically just diminished. So I think I made him, I don't know, maybe a batch of like 10 cookies. Probably 6 to 7 of them are still in the freezer. So since September 7th, he's eaten 3 of them. So it's really like he feels like having one, he has one, and then he just, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not even an addiction or a thing with him. And so that's
not even a thought anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think talking with your kids is important. If I had known about this when they were younger, we definitely would have talked a lot more about it. And I do have other kids. So I have children, right? And then I have 31 students. And I do mention nutrition to them, but they know that I eat only meat, but they keep forgetting or they can't conceptualize what that actually is in life, No, they'll bring me things. No, I'm not going to eat that. Remember, I only eat meat. Or, do you like to eat this? No, because remember, I only eat meat. So it takes time. But I do talk to them about the high levels of sugar and the processed food that they are feeding them at the school, and they know what I think about it. But I do find it sad that, they're given a bowl of Lucky Charms by for the school breakfast, and that's just normal. They think that's fine. They don't see how it's unhealthy or anything. It's kind of crazy. You're right. Nutrition isn't taught.
It's not. And I think you're doing it excellently. You know what I mean? You're leading by example. And I think that that's a critical missing piece. It's like, if we want our kids to do better than we did when we were growing up, then we have to set the example for them. They will not do what you tell them to do. They will do what you act out. So if you're telling them, oh, carnivore is so great for you, but you don't eat it yourself, it's like they're going to be like, okay, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Like you said, it's hard enough to get teenagers to to do stuff, let alone change their way of eating, to suit their health and that sort of thing. That's a great question. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So going off of the kid topic a little bit, I love this one. What are your thoughts on coffee? You said you get this one in your DMs all the time too. So, okay. I don't even know where to start on this coffee thing. Let me just say this. I have been drinking coffee since I was in college, because when I was in college, which I'm currently 48. Okay. So that's been a while. We're talking 30 years. I've been drinking coffee.
Wow.
And when I was in college, I was a full-time student. I had exactly $0 from my parents because they didn't have any money. They were very supportive in lots of other ways, but they just didn't have the financial means to support me that way. So I had academic scholarships and some grants and some things that I earned that way. And then I worked like 3 jobs while I did a full load of like 15 to 16 units every semester. So yes, I've been drinking coffee since then. I worked at actually a coffee place, and that's really where it got started. And I've been, drinking it ever since. For the last, I really need to get better about putting these dates down. About a month, 3 weeks to a month, I did switch to decaf, which is like kind of a big deal. I still have that. in the morning when I wake up and the whole family's asleep, I'm the only morning person out of our 4-person family. There's something about when the house is quiet, everyone's asleep, and I just like to sit there with my, I'll just call it hot beverage. And it has all this time been caffeinated coffee, but I've switched to decaf. I feel like I need to do this in baby steps. But yeah, I decreased it down to where I was just having 1 cup of caffeinated coffee a day, and when my head, because I was getting little headaches, and when that went away, then I took that last cup out, and I have been doing decaf. Now, with that being said, I still get a lot of comments about, I don't even know the names of them, but the chemicals that are in coffee, like not the caffeine, but the other things, plant things that are in there are bad for my thyroid and things like that. Yes, and I do have, some thyroid issues, but my thyroid numbers are going in the right direction, Rochelle. So there's that. I'm working on it.
That's a positive as far as I'm concerned. If your numbers are going in the right direction, that's a positive.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of thoughts about coffee. I think it's very personal. I think when people come at you about your your diet, it's like they're coming at you about your weight, or they're coming at you about your parenting style, or they're coming at you about your marriage or something like that. It's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
When I got pregnant, I actually had a massive coffee aversion. And so I genetically have a predisposition where I cannot handle caffeine, even decaf. If it's not properly decaffeinated, it makes me very, very sick. I get anxious, I get jittery. I don't feel good. I feel like I'm literally just like shaking like a leaf in the wind. I just have no tolerance for caffeine. And so when I got pregnant, I couldn't even stand the smell of it brewing. I couldn't stand the smell of beans. And we have a really great local roaster who goes to my church, and he provides our church with coffee. And there's a cafe in our church, and I would like go in there and like, this is the worst part of going into service, is the smell of coffee, because it would just make me gag. It would make me so nauseous. So I didn't bother reintroducing coffee until well after postpartum. And when I tried it, I actually have a video about this on my YouTube. When I actually tried it, I ended up having quite a reaction to it. And my son had a really bad reaction to it too. It was the only thing that I would have done differently, because I basically ate beef, butter, bacon, and eggs every single day. So it's like, throw this cup of decaffeinated coffee in there, and all of a sudden I get these weird symptoms. I'm like, correlation doesn't always equal causation, but in this case, it seemed pretty obvious to me that it was probably the coffee. I'm with you. There are a lot of chemicals in coffee. There's a lot of people that talk about, oh, well, coffee contains mold, and it contains carcinogens, and it contains whatever else, oxalates, all these things. And it's like, I think it's up to you to make that choice. There are some people who they're never going to give up their coffee, and I don't expect them to. There are some people who are happy to give it up because they feel better without it, but they don't want to admit it. I think if you're going to keep coffee in, the number one rule would be to have it after your meal. Do not have it on an empty stomach, even if it's decaf. And the reason why I say that is because, and I've researched this, when you drink coffee on an empty stomach, it can elevate your cortisol by up to 30% and for up to 18 hours. That's pretty significant. So if you're someone who is already high strung, or works a high stress job, or has a goal of losing weight or healing their body, coffee can be your friend, and it can be included, but including it after the meal can be to your benefit, because then you won't get that cortisol spike where you're not able to sleep at night because now you drank coffee at 10 a.m. on an empty stomach, and now 18 hours later you're still wide awake because your cortisol is through the roof. So those are kind of like the Cole's Notes thoughts that I have on
Yeah. Okay, so wait a minute. I'll rewind just a little bit. I've been watching Dr. Elizabeth Bright, and so she is really big on keeping the cortisol down, to the extent that she is not a big fan of things like fasting because of the stress, then the cortisol levels. She is not a big fan of like really strenuous exercise either because of that. So, but I know that she drinks decaf coffee. And I'm pretty sure she said drinks decaf coffee with a couple tablespoons of butter, and I'm pretty sure she does it before she eats. So are you really saying even decaf because I do it before I eat the decaf. The decaf coffee before you eat can raise your cortisol?
It can,
Is
because not all decaf coffee is actually fully decaffeinated. So even
yeah.
some people like me who's hypersensitive to it, I have like
Okay.
a genetic predisposition where I cannot handle even trace caffeine, like even chocolate was too stimulating for me because of the small trace amounts of caffeine in chocolate.
Okay. Okay.
Um, for me, that would equate to an elevation. Whether or not it gets to 13 or 30% and stays for 18 hours, that's a different story. I think
Okay.
that is probably a genetic variability thing. I don't know that that's true for everyone, but it's definitely worth a worthwhile consideration to see how you feel before, during, and after. Um,
Yeah.
and and also the other reason, this is a tough one for a lot of people. Caffeine, even decaf, can mess with your hunger and your satiety signals. So if your body is not properly nourished and you're kind of force fasting with, having coffee or whatever, like it can blunt your hunger signals. And so you're maybe eating your meal a couple hours later than maybe your body would ideally like it to be eaten. And then that is also, causing a hormetic stress, by like an unintentional fast, because now you have this slightly nauseating effect from the caffeine. And then you're not able to eat because you're not thinking about food because it's like coffee filled that void.
Hmm. Interesting. There's for me going carnivore wasn't hard. In fact, I did it accidentally. Like that part was easy as far as just eating meat and eggs and stuff like that. But these little habits like the coffee or the I had diet soda, I took that out too. Those kind of things were the things that I don't know, it's like it's a lot harder to like get my mental space around, my headspace around that. And I feel like I got to take these things kind of slow. But I mean, it was huge for me. I've been drinking diet soda longer than I had been drinking coffee. I
Hmm.
took that out. I'm no longer drinking it. And I feel like a victory just getting to decaf at this point. And it's like, I'm really not ready. Like, I'm still good, I think, for right now to drink my coffee in the morning. I don't have any caffeine anymore. And I've been drinking caffeine every day since I was, I don't know, a teenager with the
Yeah.
soda,
Yeah.
and then starting the coffee in college. So it's like to be this age and to not have that caffeine thing going on, that like, oh my God, I just gotta have it. I don't feel like I gotta have that cup of coffee now to like get the caffeine in me. It's like, it's just my morning routine of like
Ritual.
peacefulness and quiet when everyone else is sleeping. I can sit there and I don't know, just do what I want to do. If that's working on my YouTube channel or just catching up on my favorite show or whatever that is early in the morning when it's still just dark and quiet, or cuddle up with my cat, and just
Yeah.
it's part of that for me. And so I'm just not ready to give up that part of my routine yet,
And
I don't
you
think.
don't have to. And I think that's the other side of it too, is it becomes a ritual. People love
Mhm.
the ritual of it. They like the grinding of the beans. They like the measuring of the water, whether you use a French press or a Keurig or a whatever Breville or something like that. There's like a ritual to it, and then the cup is warm, and then you're sitting there, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so soothing. I get it. There's like a whole ritual aspect to it too. And I think that's the other part, is like it becomes like for some people, it becomes like an emotional thing. They're like, I don't want to let it go because I don't want to let go of the ritual of it. That's like my morning pick me up. That's my morning peace. That's my morning. You know what I mean? And it's
Yep.
very interesting. It's very interesting to see how other people respond to that question. But I love your response to this question. I don't think you have to give it up. I am of the opinion, if it's something that you enjoy, you may want to experiment taking it out down the road, but it's not like
Mhm.
you have to. I know it's not carnivore, but whatever. A lot of things aren't carnivore. Salt's not carnivore. So technically, it's not.
So, speaking of things that aren't carnivore, here's our next question. So, what are your thoughts on using spices?
I think when you're transitioning to carnivore, these totally have a place. I still use spices and seasonings, but I notice that I go through seasons where I don't want to include any spices, any seasonings other than maybe a little bit of salt. So I just trust that instinctively, that my body's like, hey, I don't want these things right now. Again, when I was pregnant, I couldn't stand the smell of cumin. I couldn't stand the smell of onions. I don't like onions anyway, but cumin and onions, and then coffee. And my husband eats rice every now and again, and rice. Those were the things I would barf. If I smelled those things, I was ready to puke. Which, some people are like, oh, well, that's like your body's saying, oh, this is a poison. Maybe it is. I don't know. I think those things can be used as medicine. I think they have a place, and I think they're helpful for people who maybe aren't able to just go straight lion. So when I went carnivore, I've been carnivore for over 2 years now. My husband went straight lion, and he did fine. I tried to go lion, and I was miserable. I had to keep in seasonings, I had to keep in dairy, and I had to have some variety, because for me, uh, it's not that it was a big jump for me, but it was a big enough jump that I felt like I just needed more variety to just kind of help me ease into it. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, so I think it could be different for different people. I think it's a very n equals one thing, but I totally agree with you that in the beginning when you're transitioning, I definitely use more at the very beginning than I do now. Now I'm to the point, if I'm making something that's just for me, like my kid's not going to eat it, my husband's probably not going to eat it. It's just salt. So it's just salt and meat, and it may not be beef. It's usually beef, but if it's something else, whatever it is, it's usually just salt and that, like my eggs or whatever, it's just salt now. But if I'm going to make it for my son, he really likes the Redmond seasoned salt. So there's other seasonings in there. So it's like a lot of salt, but it's garlic powder, onion powder. It's kind of all mixed together. There's a bunch of them, and he really likes that. And that's really the only thing I use for him. But he likes that on the chuck roast that I make him, and the pork shoulder. So like yesterday, I put a pork shoulder in the crock pot. I just put a bunch of that Redmond seasoned salt in. My husband eats that. My son eats that. I'm going to have that for dinner tonight. I won't eat most of it. Most of it will be for him. So I'm not like opposed. I'm not like, I will never touch a spice, but maybe once a month, because usually for me, like he'll have the pork shoulder and I'll just have my ribeye or my picanha or something that I make just for me. He doesn't really do the ribeyes or things like that. And then when I do the picanha, I do the smoked salt, and that's how he eats it. He likes it like I like it, just like that. But I think it's because that's how I made it for me, and then he tasted it. He said he liked it, so that's just how I do it. So my son is less strict than I am, just because he's 16, and I don't think he has the same issues that I have. He for sure doesn't have the food addiction issues. Like I said, even like the sweet taste just kind of went away without him even having to try. He will never overeat. I will never do this, Rochelle, because I grew up in the clean your plate club. Like I had to clean my plate.
Yep.
And I would just never do this, but he does it all the time. I'll make him like 2 eggs for breakfast, or 3, just depending, and some sausage, and make it like into like an egg bowl, right? He'll eat it, and then I'll find the bowl with like a bite and a half left in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I would never do that. I would just scoop the rest of that up and just shovel it in my mouth. But he's like, when he's full, he'll leave a bite and a half. Like, who does that? Oh, my son does, because he just doesn't have that. We never did that as parents. Like, you have to clean your plate. We just never did it. So he doesn't have that thing to clean his plate. And so he just doesn't have the same
off switch.
Yes, it's like he has a natural off switch, and it doesn't bother him in the least to leave 2 bites or whatever on his plate. It's amazing. I wish I had that. It doesn't even occur to me. It really just does. It would have to be a lot of food left. Like it would have to be where my eyes were just way bigger than my stomach. It's a lot of food left. Oh, I'm going to finish that tomorrow. Yep. That might happen occasionally,
Yep.
But for sure, if there's 2 bites left, I'm just going to eat them.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
You know what I mean?
I still clean my plate. I still clean my plate. So now what I do is I put a smaller portion, or I make less than what I think I want. Because I mean, I could easily eat a dozen eggs in one sitting. Is that how many I eat?
Yeah.
No. So now I gradually went from 12 to 8 to 6 to 4 to 3, and I'm actually quite satisfied with eating 3 eggs. Like I surprised myself. I was like, oh wow, like 3 eggs is actually satisfying, where I've never felt that way before. It was like the whole whole dozen had to be in the pan, in my bowl, and in my belly. Otherwise, I was not satisfied. So I would actually be curious to know from the community, are you a part of the Clean Your Plate Club, or did your parents encourage you to clean your plates? I want to see that the comments in the chat about this. Oh, and we have a question.
We do have a question. I was going to pop that one up there, but I'm going to say we were talking about coffee a little while ago. Karen is saying, I'm not ready to give up coffee yet either, especially going into winter. Yes, it's starting to cool off in the mornings. I still think it has to do with my sleepless nights and psoriasis not clearing up. Need more data. Yeah, Karen, let me know how that goes. But yes, it is so comforting in the morning to have that warm coffee. Like I said, I'm so proud of myself just to have gotten rid of the caffeine. And I think I'm good with that for now. Like Rochelle said, later, I might take that out later. I'm just not ready to do it now. And I'm okay with that, you know? So yes, my food addiction. Hello, my food addiction. She said she's part of the Clean Your Plate Club. But her question is it okay to use a soda stream on Carnivore? Just water and bubbles?
Yes, heck yes. I don't know what the love affair is with Carnivore and carbonated water, but I'm a part of that club. Since coming to Carnivore, I have fallen deeply in love with carbonated water. I actually had one just before our call this evening here. I love it, and if you want to use it, please, by all means, go ahead. As long as you're drinking regular water and that's not your only water that you're drinking, I think that that's totally fine. What do you think, Christi?
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. It's not my favorite. I've never liked it and I can't really get used to it. It kind of tastes, I don't know, it has a taste to me that I don't really enjoy. But I don't think it's a problem, especially if it's just the water and the carbonation. I don't see that there would be a reason to not, to not have that, especially if we've cut out so many other things, right? So, yeah.
That's a great question. That was a great question.
Great question. Okay. So our next question that we thought to talk about today is your whole family carnivore? Rochelle, I did hear you say your husband eats rice sometimes. So is your whole family carnivore?
No, ma'am. I am carnivore and my son is mostly carnivore. My husband, I would say, is heavily meat-based. He enjoys the keto treats that I make for him. I don't partake of those. He enjoys carbs every now and again, like he likes, bread or rice or potatoes or something. He likes some form of carbohydrate every day or every other day. Some days he's all carnivore. Some days he wants, a little bit of fruit. Some days he wants a little bit of grains or whatever. For him, carnivore was amazing. It healed his chronic elbow pain that he had and his infertility diagnosis and a few other things that he wanted to resolve. And he has since successfully been able to reintroduce foods without having any recurrence of those symptoms, which is amazing. Not the case for me. But he actually started losing too much weight on carnivore, which I think a lot of us ladies would like to have that problem.
I know, that's why I'm laughing. I'm like, those men with their weight loss.
No, I know. And it was getting to the point where we were close to the same weight. And I was like, okay, this is not working for me. I was like, what do you need to do to gain your weight back? Because we can't weigh the same. My husband is a big man. He is very tall and, he's very broad and he needs to look threatening. I don't need to look threatening. And I also don't look threatening. So, it was interesting. So he wanted to reintroduce fruits and some carbohydrates, and that has helped him put his weight back on to maintain his energy and also to want to eat, because he is very one of those people with an off switch. He is just like your son. He can leave the food on the plate and not think twice about it. Whereas me, it's like, no, if he leaves food on his plate, I'm trying to finish it too. I'm like, oh, I'll finish that for you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know. I have that too. So I have a family of 4. So my husband was the latest one to make any kind of diet change. So I guess maybe I'll start with him. He is not carnivore, but he first decided to go low carb. And what he meant by that in his own mind, he was like so sick of hearing like carnivore videos coming from my computer. I had to like put in my earbuds. He was like, enough. But he did hear it in the background like over and over till he finally, it finally sunk in that carbs are bad. Carbs are going to cause problems, right? So to him, he was like, I'm just going to start, because he knew he was eating so many carbs. He's like, I'm just going to start with trying to keep them under 100,
Mhm.
and he didn't even know like really how many carbs he was eating, but I think he thought it was maybe around 300. I think that's what he thought it was. Okay. So he thought, I'm going to go to under 100. Well, he did that, but he had some things he was like dead set on leaving in. Like one of them was bananas. That man has eaten a banana a day since before he was a man. Like when he was a baby, he was fed, a banana a day. And there were definitely times when he would have 2 bananas a day. And he really felt like that banana was like crucial to his energy levels, to his health. It was just like ingrained in him. And he's just about my age. He's a few months younger than me. So he's also 48, right? So for 48 years, he's had this idea, these bananas are really good for me and I've got to do it. So that was one of the things he wanted to leave in, right? When he was and keeping his carbs under 100. Well, there was a day where, I mean, they didn't take long actually to go well below that. Within like a couple of weeks, he was mostly well below that, but he was still keeping in the banana. And then one day for breakfast, he had some bacon and eggs. And then like an hour or two or whatever went by. And then he decided to go back for his banana. And he had this weird, like hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic, I don't know, something with his sugar.
Yeah.
He got shaky. He felt like he was going to fall down. He was like, whoa. Because I had tried to tell him, like, those bananas are full of sugar. I had tried to explain it, but he just explain. He needed to experience that, I think, for himself. He threw the rest of the bananas away that day. There were like 3 or 4 bananas left on the counter. He threw them out and he has not had a banana since.
Wow.
He did say, and I don't know, I wasn't like babysitting him. I mean, he doesn't really like steak like I do. So here I am eating a ribeye and he would rather make himself some kind of like, cause he still had dairy in there. Like he would make the little tortillas, but out of shredded cheese, and put like the pork in there. That's the kind of stuff he likes to do. He said that he was mostly pretty carnivore for a couple of months and he was still having like the diarrhea issue kind of. And he was like, I can't live this way. And so he has since upped he wasn't willing to continue and press on through that or try to figure that out. And so he has decided that he's put in more carbs. I'd say now he just told me like yesterday, he says he's between like 20 and 50, maybe carbs a day. He's cut out the processed carbs. So, I mean, he used to eat so many like saltine crackers. I mean, sleeves and sleeves and sleeves of saltine crackers, Doritos, like tortilla chips, just tons and tons of that stuff. So he's cut all of that out, which I think is amazing. Wow. Of course, within the couple months that he did carnivore, he lost all the weight he wanted to, he took off 20 pounds, like the little belly he had is gone. I'm like, good grief. It just seems so much easier for it to come off for them. But that we did at one point calculate, it wasn't 300 carbs a day, Rochelle. He was eating 400 to 500 carbs a day.
Whoa. Wow. Well, I guess sleeves of crackers. That's a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot. It'll do it. That, and between that and like the ice cream and all of that stuff that he was eating. Yeah.
Sugar,
Yep. Yeah. Sodas, Coca-Cola, that kind of stuff. Wow. So, I mean, I think he's happy because digestively he doesn't have to, deal with that. He didn't really have much of like a keto flu other than just the diarrhea. He just couldn't hang with that. Like whatever. I can, I guess, understand that. He just wasn't, I guess he didn't have enough, like the weight had already come off. He didn't really have enough other things wrong with him to motivate him to stick with it. Whereas when I went carnivore, I'm sorry?
Did he go back to eating bananas?
No, he still hasn't had a banana.
Scared of the bananas?
He's scared of the bananas now. He did not put the bananas back in. So absolutely no. I couldn't even really tell you what carbs he is eating. I'm just telling you the number that he told me. There are days I think he still goes pretty close to carnivore. He eats a lot of bacon and eggs, that kind of thing. So anyways, but he's definitely changed his diet like a whole lot. And I think for the better. And then my younger son, I had already talked about him, so I won't reiterate that, but he went carnivore in February. He does do carnivore with dairy. So he does include, like, I'll have a little bit of dairy, mostly heavy cream in the form of heavy cream that I put in my decaf coffee in the morning, and the super occasional cheese. It's so cool how I feel like I can moderate cheese now that I'm carnivore. When I was keto, I could not moderate cheese. There was too many other things still in there. I eat a lot of butter.
Okay. Yeah.
I do eat a lot of butter.
I'm
but when I say when I say dairy, my son does whole milk.
Right.
And he does cheese, like a
Yeah.
lot. Like he'll have cheese, especially for school lunches, because for school lunches it's just so easy to cube up some cheese. Like I can
Yeah.
send that, and then some pepperoni, some little cut up sausage, and I can just send that with him to
Yeah.
lunch for school lunch.
Yeah. I think we
He
should talk
doesn't eat
about
as much when he's home.
yeah. I think we should talk about
Yeah.
that because I'm a dairy fairy. when I was
Oh, okay.
when I was pregnant, that's all I wanted to eat. And I found so for me, when I came to carnivore, like I said, it was a really difficult transition for me mentally. Not that I hadn't done other types of restrictive ways of eating. I don't think carnivore is restrictive. I think living in chronic pain and with terrible diagnoses, I think that's restrictive. But I just felt like I needed variety, and so I kept dairy in. But I think dairy is very easy to transition an addiction to. And I like that you mentioned that you feel like you're able to moderate it because when I first came to carnivore, I could not moderate dairy at all. I found like I found my brain just would go crazy when I would eat it, and I was like, "Oh, I have to have cheese on everything, and I have to have butter on everything, and I have to have, this on everything," and like I have any excuse to eat dairy, and I was looking for it. So I experienced what we call an addiction transfer. So I went from being addicted to sugar to addicted to dairy because there are still trace amounts of carbs in things like heavy cream, with the lactose that converts to sugar in the bloodstream. And also dairy lights up your opiate receptors. So for someone like me
Yes.
with addictive tendencies already, to go to, carnivore and not include dairy, it was kind of I had to use that. It was kind of like my bridge to get me into carnivore and to keep me carnivore. But I think dairy is one that a lot of people don't always agree with. They're like, I don't think dairy is carnivore. I I still think it's carnivore because it's an animal product. What do you think?
I do think that it's carnivore, but I do think it's like kind of one of the carnivore junk foods. So some people classify it as that. So it's like it is tricky for some people to moderate. But like I wanted to try raw cheese. I had never tried raw cheese.
So good.
Um, yeah, so like last week I bought some raw cheese. And like I said, I'm a teacher too, so I got school lunch too, and it was easy. I just kind of cut it up, but it was like, oh, this is good. But then I was done with it. I was done with it. Like the next day, I didn't want more cheese, or I didn't go back later that day and have more cheese. When I came home, I had a ribeye with no dairy. And so that's what I mean by that. When I was keto, oh my gosh, like the cream cheese and things like that I would do, and then I would go back for another ounce, and I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
I just don't have that issue now. I can buy cheese sometimes, have it, and then not have it. So the way I treat cheese is like if I'm at a party somewhere, like the holidays are coming up, right? I know very well at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, there'll be a charcuterie. I'm going to enjoy that cheese that's on that tray, and I'm not going to feel bad about it at all. I'm going to enjoy it. In fact, my aunt will probably, because last Christmas when she found out my mom is also keto too. So she started making like a keto cheesecake, and
Ooh.
she does use almond flour in the crust. And so I didn't want to go that far. So I just didn't eat the crust, and that doesn't hurt my aunt's feelings. She's fine with it. So I just ate the middle part. Yes, there's a little sweetener in there because it is a keto cheesecake, not a carnivore one. But it's like eggs, cream cheese, and a little bit of whatever sweetener she like Swerve or whatever sweetener. It was cool because I was able last Thanksgiving I had a piece, last Christmas I had a piece. I didn't take any home. I didn't want a second piece. I just enjoyed it in that moment, and I was able to do that. It was super cool.
Wow.
So, where I have never been like that in my life with treat kind of stuff. And I think it's
Ooh.
because I don't have it. I don't allow myself to have it every day. Whereas on keto, I was like, every day I'm going to have that little bit of whatever it was. It was like the nuts and the cream cheese. So
Yeah.
I do think
It fits
that
your macros.
yeah, if it fits your macros. I do think that dairy can be carnivore, but I think it has to be on an individual. Like my son has no problem.
Yeah.
The way I eat it now, it's very, very rare. Like my raw cheese is gone. I don't have any more. I haven't had any for several days, and I'm not missing it. Like, oh, I sure wish there was some more cheese in the fridge. Like, it's fine. I don't. It's fine. And next time, maybe I'll try a different flavor on another in a few weeks or whatever. Whenever I feel, get that feeling like I want to do that. So I wanted to put up because we had some questions, and I love these questions. So let me get this down and then come back over here. Sorry, our questions are in different spots. But my food addiction is asking. She says, I just got my son to start eating steak. He hates vegetables. That's fine. Don't make him eat those vegetables. I stopped making my son eat vegetables. He's very happy. How do I introduce more carnivore foods? He's 11 and mildly autistic. And then she goes on to say it's a texture thing. Any tips? His main meal, chicken nuggets are his favorite. So I had the same issue with my son who's ADHD because um, he's also diagnosed with, oh good, my food addiction. She says she's new here and the title Mom Carnivore brought me in. That's awesome. So my food addiction, my son is not autistic, but he does have ADHD and he does have sensory integration processing disorder. And if your son is autistic and has sensory things, then you probably know exactly what that means when I say that. And his sense of taste or the texture in his mouth was a big deal. Okay. He did not eat solid food until after he was in preschool. So we did not know about carnivore back then when he was that little. We just did the standard type of things. So we weaned him onto rice cereal and all that stuff. And then the pureed baby food. And he would not graduate beyond that. If we tried to put anything that wasn't totally smooth in his mouth, he would gag and then he would throw up. So it wasn't a preference. It wasn't, he would literally throw up. And so we didn't try introducing foods every single day because he was literally throwing up every time we did. And I was very nervous sending him to preschool because I thought, I'm going to have to send my preschooler to preschool with flipping baby food. We cannot do that. It's embarrassing, right, for him. He won't realize now that it's embarrassing, but when he gets there and the other kids tease him, that's not going to be good. We finally did find a few things like really smooth yogurt, like vanilla yogurt with no fruit in it. He would do that, right? So we found a few things to where, applesauce, absolutely pureed, very smooth applesauce we could get him to do. So we could send an almost kind of normal lunch to school with him, but his texture in his mouth has always been an issue. Yes, he got better with that even before he went carnivore. He started eating things like, I think macaroni and cheese was the first thing he ate that wasn't totally pureed. Again, very bad for you, but I'm just saying we didn't know any better. And this is at the time what we did. Okay. Then he would do a pizza, like a cheese pizza with no meat on it because he didn't want all that extra texture. And then eventually he could even tolerate the pepperoni he would do. But his diet was very limited. It was chicken nuggets. It was pepperoni pizza. It was macaroni and cheese. He would do cut up hot dogs with cheese on it. So that's carnivore. He would do that, but that was an occasional thing he would eat. He called them hot dog bites, right? He would do that. As far as other meat, even a chicken leg or a chicken thigh, he wouldn't even eat that. He's still never even had steak. When he first went carnivore, I was nervous about it. So chicken nuggets, when I started him carnivore, it wasn't here's a steak, kid. It was very transition with foods that were very familiar to him. So I made him chicken nuggets out of ground chicken, and some pork panko and some Parmesan cheese and some egg for a binder and put them in the air fryer. And he loved those. And my other son, who is not carnivore at all, he still eats standard American, he likes those too. So when I make those, he will eat those. He's 18. Also has ADHD, by the way. So that was the first thing I did, and he really liked that. Then I tried these carnivore pizza pockets that I do. So it's like a slice of mozzarella cheese just on a cookie sheet, baking sheet with some parchment paper, just the pre-sliced mozzarella cheese, put some pepperoni and sausage in there. And he does do a teaspoon of the Rayo's really super low carb marinara sauce, and then another slice of the cheese on top. I think it's 350 degrees for 5 minutes. The cheese just kind of melts. It kind of seals itself together. He eats those. And those were the two things, man. We started on that, and we kind of put those on a rotation. I was very happy that he did decide that scrambled eggs with some sausage, some browned up breakfast sausage in there. He really likes that. And I cook that in butter. So butter with some scrambled eggs and some sausage, that's his go-to every morning. Before we tried that, though, I did make him the crepes, carnivore crepes with cream cheese and egg. So you can make them with just cream cheese and egg. I have that on my channel somewhere if you want to go look for those. Then I started adding in the Equip Prime Protein. It's beef isolate protein, but they have a vanilla flavor. It's very clean. It's a little stevia, the vanilla, and the beef protein, and that's it. So you can add some of that in there for a little flavor. It makes them a little more fluffy too, maybe a little bit more like a pancake. So we did that at first, but like on school mornings, I don't have time for that. So I was very, very, very happy that he did decide that scrambled eggs were good. And so that's how I started him. And then we just kind of gradually, and I'm telling you, man, he now asks for chuck roast. He asks for pork shoulder. He asks for picanha. Sometimes when given a choice, hey, what do you want, pizza pockets or there's leftover picanha, he will request picanha. And I'm like, I never in a million years thought that would happen. So it just took some time. And yes, let me hide this comment. So yes, my channel is Meeting Wellness. So I'm not sure whose channel this is streaming on, Meeting Wellness, which is my channel, and then the Real Life Carnivore channel, which is Rochelle's channel.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, feel free to pop in anytime, ask questions, and yeah, awesome. It is a miracle. I've made several videos. I really need to create a playlist, but I've made several videos about his transformation on ADHD, how his symptoms have improved, and how we transitioned him on that diet. It's gone way better than I ever anticipated. So good luck with your son. I have heard very good things about children with autism and the carnivore diet and how it has helped tremendously with the symptoms that they've been experiencing. So yeah. Sorry to take over a little bit on that one, Rochelle, but I'm like, I got to talk to this mom right here.
No, I don't have any experience with this, so I'm really grateful to listen to you sharing these things. And the only thing I would say, if this adds any value at all, I don't know if it will, but just be willing to experiment. I like you said, I love your comment here where you say your son wants to be swole, and so you told him that requires eating beef, and I think that's kind of getting on their level and finding out what their goals are, because their goals are different than ours, right? Like your goal would probably be to help him improve his autism symptoms, whereas his goal is like he wants to get jacked. So, getting on his level and finding out what his goals are and finding ways to help kind of tailor things to him. I think you're an amazing mom, and I love that you are his mom. You are the best mom for that boy. And so I'm really, really grateful for your question, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that Christi knew what you were experiencing, because I have not experienced that. So that's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so another question. I'm so glad you put this one in here, Rochelle, because I hear this all the time. Do you worry if you feed your children carnivore that they will develop an eating disorder? I can say that I've heard even carnivores that I've known, fellow carnivore YouTubers, I've heard them say this about that they are worried about this for their children. Like they feed their children things they feed them a lot of meat, but they also feed them things other than meat because their fear is when they get older, they'll just go nuts, or they'll, because it's like, oh, now I can eat all the things, and it'll just cause them to develop this eating disorder when they're older. So what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, this is a really great question. And as someone who has recovered from a few different eating disorders, I think this is really important to touch on this. And I've recently had my perspective shifted on this too, because we were talking about this a little bit before the show. I was one of those people that was like, I don't know if I just want to feed my kid carnivore because, what if they develop the eating disorder? And the reason why that question's even out there is because people are constantly commenting, being like, you're creating an eating disorder for your kids. And it's like, well, you could say the same thing about vegan parents who make their kids eat vegan. You're probably creating an eating disorder for your kids. We're creating an unhealthy association with food. And I don't want my kids to have an unhealthy relationship with food. I want my children to know that they have the ability to choose things. I'm going to encourage them and offer them what I know is best, but I'm also going to give them a little bit of choice. I don't want it to be a dogma, but I'm really excited for you to share your perspective on this too, because I feel like this is a new lane for me, because my son is only 9 months old. He'll be 10 months in a few days. And so this is all very new for me. I don't have children, of the age to make those choices for themselves. I will say my son is mostly carnivore, and I say mostly carnivore because he will eat red meat until the cows come home. He will eat butter. He will eat tallow, but he loves a good cornichon, a good French pickle. I also love a good French pickle. That would probably be my pitfall with carnivore next to dairy is enjoying a good pickle every now and again. I just want to have one, and he enjoys them. I have offered him other foods, fruits, bananas, avocados. He doesn't even want to try them, and I'm like, that's okay. I don't mind if you don't want to try them, but I at least want to offer it so that way for myself I can be like, well, I offered it. He didn't like it. Okay, back to beef. And it's interesting to just kind of like see his natural responses to things. So the first time he tried, cucumber was the other thing. The first time he tried cucumber, he kind of like looked at it like, what is that? And he tried it and he was like, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting reaction. Okay. I thought it was just a coincidence. So I offered it to him again a separate time, same reaction. Avocado, we call it the finger. He does this thing where he like picks stuff with his index finger, and he was kind of like, and then he picked it up and was like, threw it on the floor, and like that was his face too.
Mhm.
Like he was like, "What? Why? What is that? No, thank you." Banana, he just pushed it away. Like didn't want to smell it, didn't want to taste it, didn't want anything to do with it. And I was like, "Okay." I put the banana down, and then I put something he's familiar with down. Maybe this is bias. Immediately picks up the familiar item, the steak, the hamburger patty, the ground beef, whatever it is. Even chicken. He's weird with chicken. I ate so much chicken when I was pregnant with him. I thought for sure he was going to come out looking like a chicken. I ate so much chicken. And I'm not normally a chicken eater. I'm mostly a ruminant animal eater. But every now and again, I just crave chicken. And when I was pregnant, I would say 60 to 65% of what I ate was chicken, which is unheard of for me.
Wow.
So I was
Yeah.
surprised he kind of was like rejecting chicken. But please, please, please share your thoughts and your perspective on this as someone who has older children as well.
Yeah. So my concern with my son, so okay, I'll start off with myself. I did have very disordered eating to the point that I had a calorie counter at all times calculating and recalculating in my head. I would be constantly thinking about what have I already eaten? What can I still eat today to fit within this very low number of calories that I had set for myself? I would just starve and starve and starve myself, and then I would go off the deep end, and then I would eat all the Oreos and all the ice cream and all the things. Put on some weight and then go, oh no, I'm putting on weight, and then the cycle would begin again. So that is my disordered eating pattern that I lived with for 30 some odd years, right, of my life, ever since my teens. I did that because I thought eat less, move more. So I just kept trying to eat and eat and eat less. Until it was like I was so hungry that I would just, lose it and binge, right? It was very bad. I do have boys. I do think it can be different, the way women are often said, you got to be skinny. There's a lot of pressure on us to have to be thin or whatever. Also, my boys are unique boys in that they don't really seem to care a lot what their friends think about them, which I think is good, right? That's cool that they're self-assured in that way, and they're not real worried about what the crowd is doing. So I do have unique boys in that way. But I was concerned when my son went carnivore. Okay, because up to then he'd been eating school lunch. Why? Because it's free. And I didn't really, know much about real nutrition until doing this. And he had just been in the habit of getting that free meal. And it was like, okay, so now he's going to go from eating the school lunch to he's going to bring like sausage and cheese every day or whatever. And I thought, I hope his friends don't, I don't know, call him weird or something. So like a few days in, I was like, so like, how's it going? He's like, they don't care what I eat. I don't care what they eat. It's not a big deal, whatever. And he even said there's one friend who, like, the sausage that I send him, he really likes it. So he always gives his friend a piece of the little sausage every day. I'm like, awesome. Maybe your friend will end up eating carnivore too. So that was the one thing I was worried about. The other thing was social events for him. So like he's in the school band. And so a lot of times before like a football game, the kids will stay all the way from after school till all the way through the football game. So they're there for hours and hours. And they haven't done it so much this year, but like last year before he went carnivore, it was like, here's pizza or here's sandwiches or whatever. They would feed the kids. And so I thought in these social situations, every single band kid, like that's his whole crew, right? They're all going to be eating pizza. And then what's he going to do? Is he just going to eat the toppings? Like, what's he going to do? I didn't want to force him. I didn't want to say, now, when you're having pizza, when your friends are having pizza, don't you dare. I didn't say any of that at all. Any of those times he's been invited to friends' houses, or when those situations like with the band have come up, I've just said, hey, this is happening. What do you want to do? And every single time he was just like, hey, can you send some food? Sure. I sent him food. I never told him not to eat the other food, but it went, he just stuck to it. So I really think that he just wants to do it. I haven't forced him into it. After the first month, I said, do you want to stick to it? He said yes. And then I stopped asking after that. It's just been kind of what he does. He doesn't seem to have any problems, with his friends. Later, after he, leaves the nest, whenever that might be, he's, like I said, he's 16 now. He's planning on living with there's like a local, junior college. He's planning on doing that so he can save some money and live at home. So he's probably got at least, 4 more years at home. After that, it's going to be, he'll be totally out on his own. I am like really dying to see what's going to happen. I really don't think it's going to cause an eating disorder. Even my other son that eats like standard American diet still, like he'll eat a burrito, for example. So Rochelle, you'll know what I'm talking about. He'll eat a burrito and he doesn't like pick them up. He like cuts them with a fork, and like the filling will kind of like go out. Like if that was me, I would be licking up, like all of that filling would end up in my stomach. Nope. It's like on a plate in the kitchen. It's like he eats the burrito, but like the filling, to me, that's the best part. He'll just leave it there. So even though it's like, I think it has to do with, I never did the whole, you have to eat all your food thing. And so they really just don't have that thing where they overeat, either one of them. So I don't think that they will develop an eating disorder, because I think a lot of it's in the presentation too. I think if as a parent, if you are like, carnivore is the only way and you have to do this, and how dare you want to try this, and if you I don't know, frame it in that way, then yes, it's going to seem like some very like strange thing. And when they get out there and see that the rest of society isn't eating that way too, they're gonna feel weird. But if you frame it and you teach them the nutrition and like why you're doing it, and like we were talking before the show, specifically about Courtney Luna and what she does, and like if they eat something that isn't carnivore, oh, now you're acting a little, look how you don't feel the best, or you're acting super hyper. You think it was connected to what you ate. And when kids can see those connections, kids are smart. And I think if you teach them that, I don't think that's an eating disorder at all. I think that's teaching them what's healthy. And then, like me, I'm choosing to keep my decaf and heavy cream. I know very well that there is not a nutritional thing. That is not because of the nutrition that is in that cup, right? That is because I enjoy the ritual and the experience of it. And I think when my kids get older, if there's things like that, they don't even drink soda. They've never drunk soda. But if there's anything like that they choose to include, or something that they enjoy because of that reason, at that point, they're going to be adults and they're going to make those choices. I do not think that it's going to cause an eating disorder. I think it's going to make them super healthy, and it's going to keep their brain as clear as it can be. Like, I know I had a ton of brain fog that's gone. They're gonna, the son that's eating carnivore, he's experiencing a clear brain. He's experiencing his ADHD symptoms lessening. He can actually organize his own thoughts. He can take on a complex task without an adult having to break it down into steps for him, where in the past, there would be no way he could do that. So I think that he can think very clearly for himself. And, that's only going to help him make food choices in the future. I don't think it's going to hinder him.
I love that you said that. And I agree with you 100%. I really do think it's about creating awareness foundationally around it. It's like, you ate this, and observe how you feel, observe how you behave, observe, your mindset, observe your mood. Because as someone, like I said, who has recovered from different eating disorders, I just think back to like when I would binge on those cookies or whatever, or I would restrict because I, like you, I would restrict because I gained weight. Oh my gosh, I gained half a pound because I ate 2 bags of Oreos and had a hyperglycemic episode, and then I tried to eat all this fat to combat it. And then I tried to eat a good meal to combat that. It was just, nobody ever talked to me about it. You know what I mean? And I remember being a super young person, 8 years old, being diagnosed with hypoglycemia. And it's like, well, why at 8 years old am I being diagnosed with hypoglycemia, so low blood sugar? And it's because I was eating a highly processed food diet. We didn't have access to a lot of stuff, and the junk that my mom did buy, we were limited on how much of that junk we were allowed to have. But boy, let me tell you, when I got access to it, I was all in. All in. My allowance, I always spent it on all of those things. So I love that creating awareness, I think, is the most important part. I am 100% with you there. And I love that your boys are so secure in who they are that they don't care what other people think, because I think that that's the other thing. Depending on your home environment, I really think your home environment is.
Ooh. Her camera cut out, or her internet cut out, or something. Oh, there she is. Your camera cut out for a minute there.
Sorry, my little dude got a hold of my keyboard.
Oh, no worries. I have a cat. She does that sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, we should be good. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it's really important to not just have the right food, but the right home environment. I think that makes all the difference for kids. If children know that they are loved, that they can have their basic hierarchical needs met, that they can find love and safety and food and clothing and shelter, I think they grow up to be great people. We don't have to worry about them growing up to be sociopaths.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I know your little one is getting restless. I just wanted to shout out Westfield 90. Thank you so much for the super sticker. That is very much appreciated. And I'm glad that all of you guys joined us for this conversation today. Rochelle, I think we need to have a part 2, because I know there's a lot more questions. But it was super cool that we were able to, especially my food addiction, to talk to her with her little one and getting started with this. So hopefully other moms will see this, and it's going to help them as well. If you make sure you click the like button and help this get out there to more people on YouTube, and we will see you next time. We hopefully come back for a part 2.
Yes. Please like and subscribe and drop comments and share this out with your friends. We would love to hear back from you guys what other questions you would like to have for us if you're not able to meet us live.
Absolutely. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.